Alright, it's working? Okay, so it should be working now. Something weird happened. Okay, so until people show up, I'm going to be playing Mirror's Edge. If people show up and they want to chat, if you want to talk movies, baseball, or whatever, no one's here yet though. Okay, so we are going to be playing Mirror's Edge until people show up. Hey Cam. If enough people show up and you want me to do something else that would be more conducive to talking, like the other thing I used to do before I got bored of it and I switched to Mirror's Edge is I used to play Portal 2. Um, like I really like Portal as another thing I could do with my hands and eyes while I listen to podcasts and stuff, but um, the actual game isn't all that intriguing to me, so I used to just play constant custom maps. Like I would just download giant map packs and play them, but I pretty much played through all of the giant map packs. And kind of the remaining ones are not really very good. Like I like sort of a medium to hard challenge, just although I play some really hard maps that are very fun. Like they really make you think about portals and stuff in different ways that even the game itself doesn't make you think. Um, but it's but then like the really easy ones or the badly designed ones aren't that fun. But it's something that I can play and talk at the same time because this game takes a little more concentration. If you want me on camera, you have to drop a tip. This is my rule. I mean, you don't have to. I feel like being on camera, I will. But right now, I'm not exactly. It's laundry day. I don't have any makeup on or anything. I guess I have to let the opening go. I was watching Rich and Jack play Ace Attorney. I think it's right, Ace Attorney. It's very fun. I like that they got into it. It's good when they get into things.
And those who refuse to conform were pushed to the sidelines, criminalized. They became.
Oh no, people are being rounded up.
We call ourselves runners.
Hi, morning songs. Hello. Okay, so if you want me to play something else, just let me know because I don't mind. I'm just playing Mirror's Edge until more people show up. And if you want me to talk or chat about something, movies, Ghostbusters. I haven't watched Ghostbusters. Baseball, whatever. Then I'll switch to something that's probably a little easier for me to talk on. I've decided that pretty much every time I die while I'm on stream is when I'm talking. So I probably can't really talk while it's going on. It's true, player enthusiasm can go a long way. Well, I'm enthusiastic. I'm just not very talkative. If anyone else shows up. Bloop, 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 bloop. Okay. Well, it's not really that. Like, I can talk and play at the same time, but sometimes I will need more concentration than other times. And everyone's different. Like, I talk when I play games all the time, but when I need more concentration, then I stop talking. But I can't have nothing going on. So, it's like, and part of the problem is that I need, like, my audio senses. Like, if I'm talking with someone, then it's better than, because there's no audio, right? No shit. See, look at that. I wasn't paying attention. Alright. That's right at the beginning, so I won't count that. As of that. Just to be sure, I'll start to let it. But it's distracting because if I'm talking to you and then I'm looking at the chat, it gives me something else to worry about. Like, I can talk and explain the game with people. But mostly I prefer to listen, which is why I play this game with podcasts. I mean, like, nothing's really going on in my life right now. Like, mostly school, my frustration with my classmates. And I'm trying OkCupid again. OkCupid is annoying. Like, I thought about lowering my age just so that, because like, guys set their age filters to ridiculously low things, but at the same time I don't want a guy like that anyways, like it's just gonna get but it's just silly. It's like people say age is just a number, which is true unless you're actually able to filter that number. In which case, like, it's a big deal because they make it a big deal, which is so silly. After being on OkCupid for like a couple of days, I remembered why I'm not on OkCupid, so... But I don't know how to meet people. Like, I don't really have too many people. It's hard to meet people, and like when I'm in school, no one talks to me. I stream in part because I'm just desirous for company and for some, like, for people to talk to and stuff like yeah, see, like, I can't... I'm just playing horribly. This is not working. I didn't get enough sleep today, so there's also that. This all combined with the fact that I'm just talking and something. It's not... I'm not counting deaths on this first level when I'm not paying attention. Just because I don't... Like, I could restart the game and I'd have no deaths at this point. I just... That would be boring for other people to watch. when I used to have like people, like when I was in high school and stuff, and I used to play video games with people, it was always that I would be very chatty. But when I stop talking, then they know I'm getting serious. And most of the time, I can beat everybody by talking. But sometimes if it's like a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-1, then I stop talking. And then you always know that when I stop talking is when I'm actually concentrating. Like, I think I don't mind talking if I'm playing Mirror's Edge if I'm not trying to do a no-death run. If I'm trying to do a no-death run, you know, then I need my full concentration because otherwise, because I can't die once. But, hey Phil, you were hoping I feel better?
Nothing.
Okay, Cupid's not gonna go off. I'm not gonna meet anyone up there. Like, the problem is, I guess, people make a lot of assumptions. I'll be back.
Alexis. Hey, Mark. Yeah, me. Not sure. Yeah, I know. See you, Mark.
Shots fire. Repeat, shots fire. All units proceed to 56 West Garland Drive immediately. Proceed with caution.
Kate!
Yeah, okay, it's not gonna go well for me because it's like, I don't know. You make a lot of assumptions. I get a lot of noise. And, like, I get tons of mail, and, like, even though I'm listed as bi, girls don't message me. Because there's a general assumption about bi women on that site. That women just list themselves as bi, but they want men. And especially since people have various assumptions about me because of the way I look, they just assume that I'm, I don't know. Yeah, everything is horrible. Yeah. I'm off today, as you can see by the fact that I almost missed that first jump. I was slightly off here, and then I missed that second. I think what it is that when I'm tired, I don't want to move my mouse as much. Like, I can feel it right now that my mind feels kind of tired. And so I'm not making, like, I'm making really tiny movement. It just feels tiring to move my mouse. I don't know what's up with me. I'm just tired. As I said, I didn't get enough sleep last night. I was stressed about, like, the silly part is that my brain can't get out of caring about school. So it's like, I have my perfect participation, so I know how to participate in the forums, but at the same time, I still feel like I should participate in the forums. I don't want to get the zeros, even though it doesn't matter. They take your best 5 marks, and they said you only have to participate 5 times. But if you want to participate more because you want better marks, but they take your best 5. I got 100 on my first 5, so I don't have to do participation again if I don't want to. Yeah, I participated this week because I thought it'd be fair to my classmates. But none of them participated, so like most of them did. Like I thought I should make a post and there's something to reply to, but nobody replied to anybody's post anyway, so. And it's like, we watched that Why Do Men Cheat documentary that was full of the usual evil psych stuff you might expect, alpha males, comparisons to all sorts of animal species. Men are
He called
like.
me. We hadn't talked much since I joined up. He had a break-in last week. He still
Well,
hasn't
it's the
paid.
usual thing. It's not that people are poly, right? Their argument isn't that people are not meant to be monogamous. Their argument is that men are meant to be monogamous, straight men. Like women should be like on one harem with all focused on that one guy, but the women's not supposed to have multiple mates. Just the guy. And they interviewed Dan Savage, which is like, what makes him an expert on heterosexual male relationships? But
I'm sure there was someone else in the building.
it was just so awful and riddled with like
This isn't a time for fun. I'm not like you.
fallacies. But we're supposed to analyze it, but the problem is that like my classmates, I think it's like this. The same thing happened in social work. The problem is the school trains people to do certain things, right? So when you're actually in a class that pushes you to do critical thinking, a lot of students don't seem. Okay, stream is back. It disconnects sometimes. And if this is a no death run, it'll be by accident. This is not going to be a no death run. I didn't count my death in the first level, but because again, I could just restart and get back there if I was back. But it doesn't matter because I don't have it, so I'm just going to talk. So most people don't want me to talk. If you want me to just play, I'll put it on the podcast. So let me know. But yes. Because of gender. It's like, you're not, and you're not supposed to just say, like they write it sort of like a general review, and it's like everyone writes it the same way, and it's just generic student way that I guess people are just taught, or they just never figure out whether they can do other types of writing. So it's just like, why men cheat is a problem that in our society, which has no answer, but many try to answer, or it's like it's a problem as old as time, and it's like, that's a fluff introduction, and it's a fluff general introduction, and everyone's answering it like that, where their posts are starting with these fluff general introductions, and then they don't say anything. And then they're like, in conclusion, men cheat for various reasons, and the documentary presents some of them. And like, it's such a generic student, like, stereotype idea of how a paper is written. Where it's just like, you start with some fluff introduction about the subject, you detail what it you detail what it says, but you don't say anything about your own opinion. And then you say, in conclusion. And this is a post, like this is a forum post. It's just supposed to be your opinion on talking. It's not a paper. And they're still doing it. And they don't actually say, like, they don't actually analyze it. And it's just kind of, like, I feel bad for them because they're not really learning. But, and so many of them are just like, oh, the documentary convinced me. And it's like, it's not about whether it convinces you. Like, well, if it is, you have to say if they have strong arguments and why they're strong, using what we learned in class, but not just, why men cheat is a problem as old as time. The documentary presents evidence that men cheat because of genetics. They talk to various authorities. And it is a problem that we must deal with men. That's it. It's like, or like they all seem convinced by the documentary. This is a recurring problem in the class where it's like we're supposed to learn critical thinking, but instead it's just like, oh, these fallacies are all very compelling to them, rather than being like, oh, that's an appeal to emotion, or oh, this fallacy, this argument is manipulating me. Well, I'm manipulated. It worked. I agree. and they don't seem to know what an appeal to authority is. They're like this is an appeal to authority because this person is a businessman, and he's appealing to his own authority. But the actual argument, he didn't say he's a businessman. You know he's a businessman. He's a famous businessman in Canada, but he didn't say he is. He didn't. His arguments. He actually has arguments about it, and you can disagree with him and take those off. But it's not an appeal to authority. He's not appealing to his authority. And it's like it's concerning when people do this. And I don't really know if it's my place to correct people because I don't want people to feel like I'm not a teacher, right? But at the same time, I feel like some people don't really understand me if I'm worried. They care about my papers, even though they don't care about me because they don't post until 11:30 p.m. on the last day. You get marks. I'm actually amazed I managed to get perfect since when they because luckily for me, I can focus on school, and therefore, I can hang around at 10 and 11 on the deadline date, just waiting for them to do their last minute posts in order to have something to reply to. But it's like, I always post ahead of time, even if I don't really have time that day, because I want to be considerate. I don't want to post on a Monday. Our course ends on Monday midnight and starts on Tuesday. So, that's our course week. So, I don't want to post on Monday night, being considerate. So I always post ahead of time to give people time to reply, because you have to reply for half your mark and make a post for half your mark. And nobody posts before me. Nobody posts until the last minute. It's not considerate to me. This is why, I got perfect on my participation. I don't even need to post anymore. I do it because I want to be nice to people. But I just feel bad. I thought, could you be a little considerate to your group members? We're all in this together.
Be careful out there. So,
what's H-Bomber's video on Sargon? I don't know about this context. I assume you mean Sargon of Akkad. The internet person who you think is associated with Gamergate? People like me. If you want me to switch subjects, let me know. I'll switch subjects. If you want me to get on video, drop a little tip and I'll get on video. If you want to wear a cat hat, drop it. Maybe that's what I'll do. If you drop a tip, I'll do I'll dress up for you. Within reason. But if you want, I'm gonna die at that. If you want me to wear a cat hat or something to stream, then drop a little tip. Within reason that it doesn't it's not something I'm not comfortable doing or it doesn't affect my streaming. I go back to that streamer who said that she's gonna stop doing the Windows streams because it was making it really hard on her to breathe and being able to play and concentrate while her push-up bra was pushing up against it, and that it took her 2 hours to do her makeup every time and all that stuff, which I empathize with, because it's even though I don't really do any of this stuff, if you're a woman on stream, you want to look good, especially. Especially for me as a trans woman, there's also more pressure. But it's I don't wear a bra because, I don't have a good bra. Good bras are expensive, especially if, you don't have certain proportions, and it's my bra makes it a little difficult for me to breathe, and that affects my playing. It affects my quality of life. Anyway, so like yeah, I want my group to be more interesting. I mean, I don't really have much to respond to. Somebody did actually point out some of the problems, some basic problems. Like it's a hasty generalization to be generalized from a small, like a couple men that you select. So I expanded on that. Some of the false analogies they make. That the documentary is terrible. Like it's one of those, like documentaries in general, especially in the Michael Moore era, are like just slanting. But and being entertaining, like making a good taste, but it's not actually a good taste. It just sounds convincing. Or like they throw information at you or combine it with cuts to experts and all that stuff. But it's like they compare, like they do the whole celebrity athletes are cheating. Kobe Bryant, which was actually not consensual cheating, right? Technically he did cheat in that he did a sexual thing that his wife had done. That was all found in a marriage, but it was also, fake. So, but Tiger Woods and all that stuff, and then they're like Tony Parker, and why do these celebrity men cheat, and then somehow it's generalized to athletes. But they're talking about like kings of the past having harems, but then they talk about how like women desire powerful men, which is an equivocation in that powerful is being used in different contexts of different periods of time. Just because kings have, royal governmental, powers, is it the same as like how we say athletes have powers? It's not the same. And they didn't acquire their power, quote unquote, in the same way. And so the whole like comparison is a bad analogy because like this. Well, there's multiple ways, right? The formal scheme that we've learned in class, where X is A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way to Z, and Y is A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way to Z, without Z, all the way to Y. And therefore, because they're similar in all these other respects, your argument is that Y is Z. Now that doesn't necessarily make it true, but it's just that in order for an analogy to be strong, you have to show that the two analogs are similar in most other respects. Every other respect would be the strongest. But obviously they don't show that here, and it's like their argument is that women desire powerful men because powerful men, have shown that they're good. They have all these abilities and that they're fit and all that stuff. But inheriting the throne is very different from like being good at sports, right? Where you could argue at least, if you're gonna do this evil sites thing, being an athlete and making millions of dollars shows your power, because it shows your fitness. But inheriting the throne doesn't show anything. And nor does inheriting the throne necessarily means one takes more risks, or that one, all of the things that they say, like powerful men become powerful because they're good at stuff, or they take risks, or they're dominating, all that stuff. Well, if you're a king, if you inherit the throne, you show none of these things, right? This is not part of your makeup. You can't even use this faulty logic. So that's one comparison that doesn't make sense, and the other one is they say like powerful men cheat because they have more testosterone that makes them take more risks, and as a species, the risk-taking gene is why we became so dominant, and all that good stuff. And it's like, but their argument was that powerful men in the past were allowed to have harems because before feminism, they actually say this. Before feminism ruined society in the 60s, powerful men were allowed to have lots of women. I'm not sure when this is, but and they had and all these kings had harems and all that stuff, and it's like, but if it's a social norm, as they argue, then it's not risky. So why? And if they're predisposed to taking risks because of their alpha male genes or whatever, then giving them harems won't prevent cheating, because they would want to cheat regardless of how many women you gave them, because they want to take risks, right? So this entire analogy just fails in all sorts of ways, which I actually posted. I'm just saying it now because of how much it annoys me. I mean, it's like, as I said, it was like reading watching the Red Pill documentary, like reading the subreddit, and it's just it's just the usual terrible arguments. I mean, like, as we point out, and this is something that people kind of miss, you can make a terrible argument and be right. You can make a good argument and be wrong. Like, whether or not your argument is strong or weak doesn't necessarily. Like, you can make a argument that global warming is happening because I've seen, like, we've had a warm summer, we had a warm winter or whatever. That's a bad argument because it's an anecdote, right? It's a generalization. If that's your entire argument, that's not a strong argument. Doesn't mean you're not right that global warming is happening. And you can make a very strong argument that isn't for something that's not true. So the argumentation is mostly just to help us be critical thinkers, if people listen to this. She's like a Terminator. She just absorbs bullets.
Look, Jack, I make no comment about those murders. Don't want to wind you up, okay? These could be pretty decent.
Yeah, well, it is their... It does completely ignore the non-binary gender and non-straight sexuality and trans people and all that stuff. But like, even putting that aside, if we're going by strict binary men and women, this thing still fails. But yeah, like the thing is, they haven't even made the case that there's that all men are genetically the same. Like, even for cis men, for people that, you know, are assigned male at birth and identify as male, they're not all genetically similar. They don't even necessarily have the same, like, chromosomal makeup. So, you know, they haven't made that case either. There's all sorts of things that's not cool. But the problem is that whenever you appeal to nature and whenever you say scientists and genes, you know, people just kind of don't question when you take it. My classmates are into that sort of talk. Does someone actually make the argument that, well, the gene does exist? Yeah, sure, but, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything else they say is true. And, like, what we learn, which, you know, I was using, is supposed to help us be able to take apart these things so that we can analyze the evidence and whether or not we think it's true. Not, you know, so even, like, if you agree that men cheat for various biological reasons, you should still be able to take apart the argument and say, is this a strong argument for it? I mean, obviously, if you oppose it, you're more likely to take it apart, which is why they say, like, the hostile audience is the one you should always consider, because they're most likely to take your arguments apart. I mean, like, yes, the most hostile audience, like very biased hostile arguments might never take your opinion, agree with your opinion, which is also why you're supposed to consider a kind of general audience. Like, it's a hypothetical general audience who's, like, hypothetically reasonable. So you're supposed to like just it's in order to make your argument stronger, you're supposed to take into various accounts of different audiences. But yeah, it's like obviously since I disagree with the general premise and the heteronormativity and all that stuff, it's a thing that I'm already predisposed to not really like, especially since I've run into the argument so much. But even in terms of that, this makes it terrible. It's completely terrible, and they cherry pick. They don't. And the biggest thing is that like if you're making a single argument, like not arguing towards people, if you're like arguing, like making a documentary, right? You should address opposing points of view simply because a lot of argument students you need to address certain points of view, opposing point of views. Like if you're going to make a causal argument, you have to address that this can only be the cause, right? That other things can't be the cause, or that it's not reverse cause. Like X causes Y, but you have to also address that Y doesn't cause X, or the X and Y aren't being caused by something else, right? Which happens with the appeal to nature ones, where you have to rule out other things before you go to nature. You can't just go to nature because nature, we consider nature in our minds to be the thoughts. Like, well, of course it's nature, because nature is the most basic of human impulses. You have to rule out that what you're observing isn't being caused by other factors or in reverse. For example, rather than, well, this is the way men are, and they cause culture. Like, our culture is shaped by human nature. Maybe human nature is being shaped by our culture. Like, Y can cause X. So you have to look at it both ways. You can't just say that, you can't just say, well, men are attracted to this kind of women. That's why our society prioritizes this kind of women, right? Because like that's like our culture, all the our ads and everything show white thin women who are feminine and blonde hair. Therefore, that is what men are naturally attracted to, because their attraction is shaping our culture. Like maybe it could be the other way around. You have to at least address that argument, regardless of whether I agree with it. Okay? But they don't, because they don't address it. My favorite thing is at the very end, they go, but even though things are nature, it's not an excuse for how we act, because ultimately we choose how we act. And they also say, and despite all this, men are happiest when they're in marriage, and men like raising children. And then cut to credits. That's just it. They're like, here, here are the counter arguments to what we just said. Cut to credits. It's the most amazing way, because first it undermines the documentary, even highlights. Like even if you're like slanting out of your mind, if you're gonna be completely biased, then don't undermine your argument of that. Just snow the people that you're gonna snow. But instead, it's just like, oh, here's a counter argument. Cut the credits. That's it. Cut. We're out of here. It's amazing. Human nature, a social construct, creates social constructs. All things create. Yeah, it's become kind of circular too. Like it's begging the question where I didn't want to get into every single fallacy, but there's a begging the question where it's like, this is men's nature because this is what's reflected in our society. What's reflected in our society is because of men's nature. It's a circular reason. And essentially, the thing is basically, why do men cheat? Well, they cheat because they cheat. Men cheat because they're predisposed to cheat, which is basically the same as saying men cheat because they cheat. But yeah, I love that they had Dan Savage. I'm like, why is Dan Savage in this documentary? What does he have to do with anything? Is he? It's like in court. Like, is Dan Savage registered as like in this debate? as an expert on heterosexual male relationships or something? And if so, why is he that? In what way is he an expert? And like all their experts, first of all, as I point out in one of the things I wrote, in order to appeal to authority non-fallacious, you have to show that there is broad consensus among your authorities. I mean, this doesn't necessarily mean your authorities are right, but because I mean, there's always the Galileo thing, which by the way, everyone thinks they are. But if you're going to appeal to authorities, if you're going to say like this professor says this thing, then that professor cannot be a lone wolf among his or her peers, their peers, and that there also has to be consensus among that. Like it can't just be like, oh, so everyone split 50-50, and or that like no one really knows what it is, right? You can't just say, well, scientists don't really know, but this scientist says this. That's not enough. You're going to provide more evidence than simply there being authority there. But the whole thing about how so I was looking it up, and it's like basically there are studies even among people who are saying men cheat and it's like a biological nature of men. When they provide studies, they provide like the studies range from 25% of men to 72% of men cheat. Right? So that's a massive range. That can go anywhere from most men don't cheat to most men cheat. So there's no broad consensus here for you to appeal to authorities without actually providing some research on why you think your particular authorities are correct. And plus, the other thing is that if you're going to claim that cheating is a male problem, you're going to have to also talk about how many women cheat, which they completely don't talk about. If you watch this film, you think 100% of men are cheating, 0% of women are cheating. Why do women cheat? Well, do women cheat? How much are women cheating? How many men are cheating? They don't even say how many men are cheating in the film. They just say like, oh, it's a big problem because, hey, you saw those famous guys in the news? They cheated. And so like the study that says 72% of married men cheat also found that 70% of women cheat. So if you go by that study just to have the higher percentage of men, that means women are cheating at pretty much the same rate. So what makes cheating a male problem? Even if you go by that. So these are the things. I missed that jump, didn't I? There we go. I almost ran myself into that. So like these are the things that you have to address if you're going to make a good argument. So that's why this is practice for my final paper. So that's good because I get a feeling that like I'm supposed to tie together a specific aspect that I'm going to talk about. So I think my specific aspect for this film, this is just practice, it's not actually about but would be that a major problem with the film is it doesn't address counter arguments. Like it doesn't address them in the general and it doesn't address them in the specific. Even when they're talking about causal relationships, they don't address other possible causes, and when they're talking about analogies, they don't address other potential differences among the analogs. Like, you could say, well, you might say that they're different for this reason, but that's not important because of this reason. But you have to address it. And that they don't address possible counter-arguments in terms of, like, they're experts in their statistics. Like, even if you say, which they don't, that most men cheat, like even if you have statistics to show that most men cheat, you also have to show statistics that most women don't. Like this is some sort of, this has been happening a little lately, where I've just been completely missing that. But anyway, so you have to show that that most women don't cheat. Like there's some sort of glaring discrepancy. Even if you go by the gender binary, right? We're putting aside their weird field of biology, we're putting aside their heteronormativity, this, sex. Putting all that aside, you still have to show this if you're going to make this sort of binary name of an argument, right? Even the most basic biological determinism, gender essentialist arguments have to show that there's some sort of difference between men and women. And they don't even show that. That's the most basic thing you should be doing, at the very least. Like, at least if you're saying, like, 80% of men are doing this and 20% of women are doing it, and you want to say, like, this is some sort of a big difference between men and women, at least there's something that you can claim is a difference. But if you're going to say all men cheat, or most men cheat, cheating is a male problem, you better show that, you better at least address what women are doing. Yeah. See, this is actually helping because it helps in school. This is why I discuss my schoolwork with Trish also, because it for me to talk stuff out, especially since my classmates are completely unhelpful for this. We're supposed to be working together to strengthen ourselves, but they don't talk, they don't post. It's not good. It's sort of disappointing because I was put in a group, like we're a group of all girls, and kind of similar superficially. I think that's why we're put together. But and like some of the people in the other groups that I've seen on the public forums are these like really annoying, splainy logic dudes who are like, I'm gonna out logic you with my logic. And I looked at and apparently like the teacher gave a list of all the groups, which means my class must be huge because there's like 20 groups and there's like 7 people per group, so there's like probably like under 50 people in the class. But they have team with names like Team Alpha Wolf Storm or something like that, Team Omega Death, Team Ultimate Arguers, and I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not in those groups because even though they may participate more, they might be so annoying. Unfortunately, my group isn't participate. That's not much better. And it's just pretty. I hate this stuff. Oh, the scaffolding. But yeah, so I have to, like, this thing I have to write on is, one's a paper about how romance is bad because their industry around romance is like the diamond industry and various other industries that are destroying the environment, and people, and imperialism and all that stuff. So I haven't, I sound dismissive only because I'm summarizing it. I haven't read it yet. I'm not dismissive. But and the other one is about a documentary about the right to buy laws in Oregon, which I also haven't seen yet. Those are the ones I have to write my final paper, one or the other. I haven't decided which one. Probably the visual documentary. Like, I tend to like videos. Because there's, like, I'm good at reading. I have a short attention span sometimes. It's easier for me to process various kinds of information. It's the one thing that I kind of feel bad that people kind of mock for. It's like there's nothing wrong with saying that he's has a low attention span except when it's to his own self-aggrandizement, because that's an issue, or that he doesn't care to know things. But the whole he reads around books, like he reads pieces of books and puts them together. That he, like I do that, and I think it's an attention deficit thing. I don't know, because I've never been diagnosed with anything, but a therapist recently said he thinks I have it. And I don't know if I do, but I do that. Like, I have trouble reading a whole book, so what I do is I read pieces of the book. Like, I flip around to the middle, which is usually more interesting. I read parts of that. If I like that, I'll read before that, and if I run into a character I don't understand, I'll read before that, and I put together the whole book. And then once I put together the whole book, I have it in my head and I can read it in capabilities.
Security.
You think he killed Pope?
The guy? Yeah, that guy! He may or may not go down. You know. Okay, take care. Sleep well. Morning songs. I feel like they base their critical thinking stuff off of game theory. Kids don't get prepared before action.
Kate to go down first.
That's exactly the problem. Like, the problem with our society and in school
Breathing down.
is the assumption that the problem with kids is they think too independently. That
And easy.
thinking independently is just this thing that people do, and therefore, in order to fit into society, you want to kind of rein that in. And therefore, and yes, I also know the whole, like, schools, they're trained to be a good factory worker and all that stuff. So, I don't want to get into that discussion right now, because, I agree with it. It's just that I also want to say that part of it is that we act like it's like people are just kind of straining at their shackles to think independently. So you don't have to teach them that thing. That if you just like say, okay, the shackles are off, think independently, everyone will do it. And it's like in social work, which takes critical thinking, and in discourse, people are just like people are having a lot of trouble. It's just like you got to think independently. And they're like, I don't want to think independently.
But it looked like CPF on me. How
And they don't know how. It's not great. The blues are around. And yeah, my classmates are having a serious issue with it, and it's kind of depressing. It's like think critically, they're like, I don't know how to think critically. No. There was also there was a celebrity question. I didn't get this one because since it's an online test and they're obsessed, they're really worried about people cheating, which is weird. If you have an online test, you should always assume it's basically open. But they do vary the questions around. You never said the why. What why? But why? Why what? Oh, you mean why I get so many messages on OkCupid? Because I'm tall, thin, blind, and I fit conventional standards of what generally is constructed in our society as attractive to heterosexual men. So, that's why I get like 1 billion messages, and a lot of people on OkCupid, even other women, say that they don't. I don't like saying it because it makes me sound egotistical. Like, because I don't think I'm attractive, but I know, like, there's the two levels, right? There's the level of how you perceive yourself and how you're pretty sure from observations and experimentation that society perceives you. It doesn't make it any easier. Like, it's like the MRA thing where they're like, oh, it must be so good to get, like, all these people honking at you or whatever. It's like, well, I mean, I guess in that, you know, our self-worth is tied to others, and women's self-worth is especially supposed to be tied to how we're perceived by male gaze in society, sure. There's a small bit of that where you're like, oh, good, people like me. Everyone likes it. People like me. But there's most of it is just like, yeah, but you know, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. Like, I don't get anything. People think I get things out of it, I'm sure, but I don't. You know, it's not like everyone who honks at me gives me $5 in my PayPal.
trusted a blue.
It's gross and creepy and scary, and people follow me and stuff.
Okay, yeah. See what I
And it's like all this stuff on OkCupid is just noise. It's just like, hey, you're hot. Or other stuff. You're hot. You're valuable. And it's always funny when they're like, wow, you're so hot or you're so beautiful, you know, I find you very attractive. Okay, like, I assume if you're messaging me for something about what you like, but it's like, other than the fact that you find me attractive, tell me something about you, right? Also, if you're not going to read my profile, you can't expect me to read your profile. So you better say something in your message if you're just going to skip if you're going to skip the whole, like, reading my profile thing and just go some boilerplate, which is fine. Like, if you want to send hundreds of women your thing, then you better include something about yourself in that boilerplate. Because, you know, otherwise, if you're not going to read my profile, why should I take the time to read yours?
Who killed Pup? You? Who?
Game theory that's live, this unsourced argument, this one and this one's wrong, right? But maybe not. Are you referring to specifically game theory or some sort of something called game theory, like a podcast or something?
How?
Like, because I don't think it's talking about actual game theory, right? Because actual game theory, you know, in terms of like how games are played and like strategy and stuff, that's not actual game theory. So you must be talking about, since you keep capitalizing it, I assume you mean you're talking about some sort of podcast? I love the unsourced arguments thing. It's just the best. When they're like, well, this thing says this, and other people say this maybe at the end. Goodbye! Leave. Excuse me. Oh, a game? Oh, that makes sense. YouTube channel affects games here. I assume it's a theory about games. Or is it like a pickup artist game theory? Like pickup artist stuff, which is pretty much what the documentary touched. I'm glad that the course appears to be so front-loaded. Like, at the beginning I wasn't sure I was going to be able to handle it. But I think part of it is because, unlike other courses, like especially since most of our grade is this final paper, or at least like a big chunk of it, for one assignment. So I think the whole point is that they want to. So most of the need of the course is at the beginning because they want to prepare us to be able to analyze arguments and write this paper. So pretty much the entire course is already done. There's no more textbook readings, which is interesting. Bam! And they have an argument thing about Haram, but we haven't had any more invitations to argue. I was worried that every time something was in the news, the teacher was going to give us a practice thing to argue. Since we didn't get marked on it and it was just practice, I usually just ask questions of people, which is a totally valid argumentation style, or according to what we learned, in that like there's different styles and everyone uses different styles at different times. Like woodpecker styles when you win the argument, hammer home the argument, slant by distortion, slant by omission, that stuff. Like that would be the troll style of argument. And the owl style is the more like you ask questions, more consensus. You take a long time to make your decisions. because you want the best decision with the most information possible. You try to balance all the sides. The ostrich is trying to avoid the fight, but he oh shoot, the train didn't kill that guy. And the ostrich argument is like you want to avoid a fight. You don't want to get into an argument, and you'll avoid getting into an argument, and you'll avoid sort of picking sides, and you want people to leave you alone. But if you're cornered, you'll kick back. If you're forced to make then you'll be kind of vicious. I mean, like, if you think of it, that's some people on Twitter. Like, that's me, right? That I decide I don't want to make a fight on Twitter. In this particular circumstance, like, I'm usually an hour person. So even if I'm Twitter, I just, like, because I don't see a point in arguing on Twitter. When nothing gets solved, everyone just mad at each other. Ow! But as people know, wow, I just got hit by nothing. But as people know, like if cornered, I will take back. Like when we're trying to avoid a fight, like if that Scott Bakula person, who's very on after me, then if cornered, then I fight back, and then I get people to help me. But in general, if you insult me, I'm just gonna run. Like on Metro Girls, if people try to insult me, I just ignore it. Because I don't see a point. I don't see things being settled out. Not anymore. Oh shit. It took too long to get out. Nope, no. Kabam! Oh, is Mario a communist? Why would it no? Yeah, that would be the woodpecker style of arguing, where you're just like, I'm right, look for arguments that agree with me. See, I'm right. This is very,
Gonna pay a visit.
this is a very popular way of arguing. Like, obviously, it's kind of the most popular way of arguing. Like, we watched a TED Talk by a philosopher who was talking about the different kinds of arguments. What time is it where I'm at? It's 4 a.m. I'm on Australian time because of Trish.
Mom and Dad were friends at the pub. Organized protests, lobbied the mayor, took me and Kate on marches. But I never really understood.
And the thing is that,
Merck said your mom.
oh, I'm getting tired.
She was killed during
That's not good. But
protest marches.
the thing is that,
After that, pretty much fell apart. Never forgave himself, and I soon after.
like, so there's like different kinds of arguments, right? And the most popular style of arguments when we have arguments is arguments as war. Like one side wins and one side loses. And the thing is that he was talking about how if you actually lose an argument, like in that you change your mind based on evidence or new viewpoints that you've gained, then you've actually won because you've gained information while the other person hasn't gained it, the other person hasn't gained anything. But the problem is that people are so focused on winning. That's right. And so all that matters is that you convince people, not that you convince people in a non-fallacious way where people gain information.
Get going.
But yeah, that's the most popular style of video, the most popular style of
Faith.
argument, the most popular style of documentary, especially thanks to Michael Moore. But even if you don't have Michael Moore's aggressive style of personal, aggressive style, opinionated editorializing, like even a nature documentary, right? If you are saying like animals behave like this, but you're selectively using footage out of context or to prove your points, and you're taking out footage that goes against your point, then if you're omitting, right, then that's also just as bad. Like that's also a way. It's just that nature documentaries have a different feel about them, so we feel about them differently when we do like a Michael Moore documentary. This question is but it's like but people need to be aware of those things. Like that's supposedly what we're supposed to be doing in this course, like becoming more aware of it. And like I'm already aware of it, and I already knew of fallacies because the internet is obsessed with them. But I find this course did actually help me. First of all, I'm talking about argument schemes because the internet almost pushes you the other way, right? And that's always kind of bugged me in terms of like, not everything is a fallacy. Like when they say, oh, that's an appeal to authority. Well, appeals to authorities aren't necessarily fallacious.
Get down to that floor. Should be an alley close by there. Get you back on the roof where you belong.
And it's like appeals to authority are necessarily fallacious. They're but they can be fallacious. Like just because something often is used fallaciously doesn't mean that there's no non-fallacious. Some stuff are just fallacies. But and some arguments will always be weak. Like anecdotal arguments are, if you're trying to generalize into a larger thing, are generally weak on their own. I mean, you can use them to illustrate examples. You can use them, and like appeals to emotion are not necessarily bad if their emotion is the argument. Like if you're arguing that you should care about somebody, like if we're arguing social justice things where the issue is that you should care about somebody, not other things. Like if for example, if your argument is that you should care about people that because it's a large percentage of people are hurting, you should care about a large percentage of people, then you've got to prove that. But if your argument is that it doesn't matter how many people are being hurt, like, well, we don't want to hurt a single human, right? So even if it's a small population, we don't want to hurt them. Then that's a completely valid argument. And if someone wants to say that it's okay to do wrong things, right? There's a two wrongs argumentation scheme, which is not necessarily a fallacy, that there are two wrongs. But you have to show that A, the wrong is used to correct another wrong, and B, it's within the same scale, and B, like it's not like we're correcting this by like murdering everybody. And C, that it's the only way that you do it. Like, and that's the thing, that's where it usually goes fallacious, where it's like it has, it has to be that it's to correct the wrong, first of all. So you can't just say, this person did something bad, therefore it's okay for me to hurt them, which is very popular on the internet. This person did a bad thing, or it's like, your justification for hurting someone is that, look at this bad thing that they said in the past that they did. They're not a good person, so it's okay to hurt them. It can't just be... you see this with MRAs a lot, with the whole, a woman slapped me for me to like beat her to death. Or like with traffic stuff, where it's like, or rape blaming. Like just because someone is in the wrong in one aspect, like I'm not saying in rape blaming it is, but the argument is they did something wrong, right? Like, oh, they should have done this. Well, that's irrelevant. So it's like, just because someone jaywalks is not a reason to kill them, right? Is that correcting jaywalk in any way? And is that within, well, say also right off the bat, because that's not the correct way. But and Imager got into this too, where there's this guy, like they were showing gifs of this guy who was standing in front of cars who were sitting on the pedestrian crosswalk, right? And so he would just stand there in front of them and refuse to move, even when the traffic turned, in order to like teach them a lesson and force them to back off. And say, like, you have to back, like, and so people were like, why can't you just run them over? Like they're standing in front, once the light turns, they're in the wrong, can't you just run them over because they're doing something illegal? And it's like, just like other illegal things, you can call the police, you can't kill, like, so just because they're doing something illegal doesn't mean you can murder them for it, which is the whole scheme. But like, I think, like my textbook said at the beginning that they want to focus on argument schemes instead of fallacies. And at the time I didn't really understand what it meant, and I know somebody said, are they saying that the superficial construction of an argument is more important than being right or wrong? And it's like, actually, that's not what they're saying. I didn't think that's what they were saying at the beginning, but now that I understand what they meant by schemes, what they meant is essentially fallacies that are not necessarily fallacies are turned into schemes. Like two wrongs reasoning, slippery slope. Like slippery slopes are not necessarily fallacies if it's actually going to happen. Like if you say, I don't think it's a good idea for you to stay up tonight because you have work tomorrow, and if you get up tomorrow for work, you'll be tired and you won't do as well, and then you're going to have to stay longer at work, and then you're going to be more tired, and you have all this other stuff to do the rest of the week, so this is going to add up, so you should sleep early tonight. You know, that's a slippery slope argument. That's not necessarily fallacious. If all these things are true, and this is a thing that you know is probably going to happen, like it has to probably happen, they have to follow from each other, they have to likely follow from each other, and all that stuff. But that's a decent argument. That's a good argument for why you should probably sleep. So those aren't necessarily fallacious, but they can be fallacious, right? So it's like it's not so that's what we learned essentially, that they're fallacies, that their schemes are not fallacies because the internet just says everything is a fallacy, and it ends up with internet arguments. You end up with people saying, well, the government study found this about trans people. Oh, you believe a government study? That's an appeal to authority fallacy. And it's like, oh, no. I mean, not necessarily. But it's the same thing, that everything's like, oh, that's an appeal to emotion, that's an appeal to this. All these things are fallacious. And it's not. And I think that's what the authors are doing, because they said they used to teach a different way. The authors of the books are professors who don't totally agree with all of their stances, but is it going to lock up? It's been locking up at this point recently. The fallacy. See, here, the problem is that, like, you don't want to end up with, like, the fallacy where committing a fallacy means everything is wrong too. I mean, you can commit a fallacy and still be right. It just means the argument is weak. It's stuck on the loading screen. I'll be back. This other person did something bad, so you should support me and not them. Fallacies don't inherently prove that the side is right. Yep, that's exactly it. That the fallacies don't necessarily prove it, but there also might not be fallacies. That's the point. Like, simply because you appeal to authority doesn't mean it's a fallacy. You can correctly appeal to authority. If you appeal, like, we can't know everything, right? You can correctly appeal to popularity. Like, if you say if you make like when you make judgments on the product, right? Often you're appealing to popularity, or you're appealing to authority because you can't possibly know it. And that's part of why, like, if we were all-knowing beings with infinite time in our hands and the ability to do infinite research, then standards would be different. But they're not. So it's not like appeals to popularity, appeals to authority are because we can't know it. So we rely on experts in many parts of our lives, and sometimes we rely on popularity. Like, if lots of people have tried this product and none of them have any problems with it, I generally assume that the product is probably not going to give me issues, or at least it's better than one where lots of people have tried it and had problems. Now, there's all sorts of reasons why that could not be true, but it's not a bad argument to make in that situation. And I think part of it, as you can tell by talking, like by what I'm saying, is that, like, this is just supposed to help you understand critical thinking more, right? And understand other people's arguments and whether they're good or bad arguments. It doesn't tell you what to do. What to do is still up to you, and whether or not you think things are good or bad arguments is still up to you. A lot of it is a judgment call. And depending on your value system, too. Like, feminists are going to find some evidence stronger than other evidence. Even if you tell them to evaluate it based on their strengths, it's impossible for us not to. It's impossible for people, in general, not to be affected by our value system when it comes to judging things. So if you're judging things, you're always going to be like, it's up to you. But this is supposed to make it easier. Like, this is supposed to help you. And so the professors were saying, like, how like, in the past they used to teach fallacies, and the problem is that students got this idea that everything was about finding holes in your opponent's arguments, and that every argument was fallacious and all that stuff, and argumentation was primarily about finding fallacies. And I suspect, given that they keep mentioning the internet, and given that the professor keeps mentioning the internet, for like the internet thinks everything is a fallacy. Like she linked us to a big book of fallacy, big book of arguments or whatever, which is essentially like framed like a children's book, but it's about logical reasoning, about fallacies. It's a free ebook online. You can give them money if you like it, but it's free. That's why she linked it, because my class, like, this is kind of what bugs me. My class uses TED Talks and YouTube and blogs and all that stuff for the material. It's like I'm paying them so much money, and how come there's all this stuff I can find online for myself, and I do find online for myself. Thank you. So it's sort of ridiculous, but so she was cautioning us that not everything in the book is necessarily a fallacy, and that the internet has a tendency to see everything as a fallacy. So I think it's because of the internet and the popularity of poking fallacies into everything that the authors changed their tactic, because it was swinging the other way. Like in the past, it was like we gotta teach people fallacies because they're being too convinced by things, and now it's like we also gotta teach them that these are schemes which can be useful, because now it's swung a completely different direction where everyone sees like, well, I shouldn't believe anything then. And it's better to be like the smug 4chaner who doesn't believe in anything and just pokes holes in everything.
And yeah, here we are again. But I feel I have to cut this little meeting short. Places to be.
Yeah, surveys are not necessarily wrong, right? Like, you have to understand the survey. It has to be a large enough sample space. It has to be have a non-biased group of people being surveyed. You have to investigate all the details of a survey. But surveys are not necessarily fallacious. How else are we going to find out about large things, right? Like, And also, your arguments are not necessarily like your arguments can be strengthened if you don't make all consuming claims. Like for example, if you if you survey a batch of microchips, right, and you find like if you survey a small sample that's not indicative of anything, if you survey a large sample and you found that like 99% of microchips are good, you can say like most microchips are good. You can say almost all microchips are good, but you can't say all the microchips are good, right? So if you change what you're saying, then your argument becomes better. But most of the time, people don't like having qualified arguments. So instead, they end up with like like just saying, well, this means that all people are like this because it's more fun that way. The other thing they point out is that you can use generalities, like to think about it is not misunderstanding people's arguments. That's the other thing they say, which is to be charitable to people when they're arguing, which is very hard online, especially when people are lying out their mouths sometimes. But sometimes they're not, and sometimes people are just very uncharitable to each other. It's hard because internet is so jaded, and literally people lie, and it's hard for people to fathom that people could be outright manipulative. But and also the whole semantic thing, that equivocation and like using people, understanding what people are saying, which is like a big problem with social justice because like academic feminists, which is where the terms come from, use privilege in a certain way. And if you're going to understand their arguments, you have to accept that privilege in their context means that way. Even if you don't agree with the concept of privilege, you can't, like, and you see this all the time, where people take privilege to mean wealth, right? Well, how can I have privilege? I don't have wealth. And when people say, they're talking social privilege, and they say, that's not what the word privilege means. Well, you can disagree with the way they're using it, but you can't disagree that they're using it. Like, you have to understand what people are saying. I missed the jump. That's the second. I have to do this again. So finicky when you need things to automatically grab things. Bam! But so, like, it's stuff like that. And but also that as an arguer, you should, like, clarify your terms. And if you're using them the way people might not understand, it doesn't mean that people shouldn't be charitable to you if they know what you mean. But it just means that, like, and this is something I try to do, right? Which is when I'm arguing for non-social justice crowd, I'll simplify my terms. Or I'll because I don't necessarily need to use all these terms that they don't misinterpret. It causes various problems. Please don't shoot the ball. Bad. Oh, this is so bad. Luckily, their AI generally keeps them on that side of the room, even if they activate those two guys. What? Oh. Frame! I had my computer stuck. That's why she didn't grab the frame. Please, Steve. Oh. Anyway, it's fine. I'm gonna get this like here. I went for the Steam. So, yeah. The internet has screwed everything. Everything. The one thing though is that I find the authors of the textbook are really uncharitable towards feminists. They have certain biases. Like for example, they don't like students. A lot of the examples about students are like always the students in the problem. Yeah. Like, well, the student might justify this about plagiarism, but that's why they're wrong. Or, you know, but it's, but also, like, they seem to be generally annoyed at feminists, because there's a lot of examples, and in every single one feminists are incorrect. And in every single one it's like, and it's, they're not even, like for example, they seem to be fairly they seem to be okay with pro-life arguments, but, and they made an argument about how, sorry, my computer's stuck, how, like various pro-life analogies and other fallacious or various pro-life arguments are fine. But with the pro-choice arguments, then it becomes, like one of it was, you know the analogy where they say, like if someone hooks themselves up to you and you're forced to support their life, you don't have to do that. And as an analogy, and they're like, oh, that's a bad analogy because, like a person who hooks themselves up to you isn't a baby, and you're not responsible for them hooking themselves up to you, but you are responsible for causing the baby. And it's various nitpicks, which is fine if they didn't also say that a perfectly communist argument was that the universe is like a house, and a house has like a builder, and therefore the universe has a builder, which is God, and that's a fine argument if you want to make it, because like the universe is designed and the house is designed, and like yeah, but universe isn't a house. I can pick this one too, you know, and but it's like they're very nitpicky for feminist arguments, and they're very non-nitpicky for some other ones. So it's inconsistent, which shows a bias in my opinion.
This training, this Project Icarus, Paradise Kruger, and nothing else to the police. Being trained. Come back.
X doesn't prove Y, not that X proves Y is wrong. Yep, that's what it is. The fallacy just makes your argument weak. First of all, it doesn't complete, like, you can have an argument, you can have a complex argument with some fallacies and still have an overall strong argument, and it's better fast fallacies. But and also some fallacies might be completely irrelevant to the argument. Like, there might just be some irrelevant fallacies that you've made, which might make your argument meander, but the main argument can still be the same. Like, you can commit an actual ad hominem in your argument, not just like an insult where it's not ad hominem, but you can commit an actual ad hominem in your argument and still have a strong argument if the ad hominem is essentially irrelevant. This is bad. I'm gonna get so stupid. But So it's like a fallacy just weakens your argument, or it's just a weak argument, but it doesn't mean you're wrong, which is I think good. And it also can mean that your argument is fine overall. But people become obsessed. Like people act like every argument has to be free of fallacies in order to be accepted, and that's not true. Like you have to evaluate the whole thing. And you have to evaluate all the balance of the evidence, and things can still be true overall. And I think part of it is that like your entire everything is an argument now. Like sort of like when one of the things I do point out in the textbook is kind of shouldn't be doing is that we like especially with feminism or stuff like that, or comment sections, especially since it's online, people are reacting to a larger cultural battle, right? People are reacting to a larger thing. So a lot of their reactions are sort of part of the larger argument as well, not this specific argument. And a lot of people's like we don't have a one-on-one argument, right? Everyone's making arguments for different sides, and blog posts can be responding to larger issues and all that stuff. But I think the problem with view is that because everything is this one big argument now, and we also view fallacies as completely invalidating an argument, we end up with like fallacies completely like someone else's fallacy invalidates your argument, right? Which is where this whole thing comes from, where everyone has to answer for someone else. Like, I have to answer for what some other feminist said. Oh, they committed a fallacy, or they said some ridiculous thing in their blog post, so therefore I have to defend feminism as a whole. And it's like, no, I don't.
I don't go just jogging in there recklessly, you know.
I think that looking at it at the different schemes is very useful. Because especially when they break them down, like you don't necessarily, not everything fits neatly into everything, they even say that, but like if you can break things down to the X, Y, Z, sometimes that helps. Like when you make arguments by analogy, right? The logical scheme is that X has the properties of A, B, C, D, whatever, Z, and Y has the properties of A, B, C, D, whatever. But not Z, because that's what you're trying to say, that Y is Z, because X and Y are so alike that that Y must be treated like X. Like Y must have property Z, and Y must be treated like Z, or whatever. But you have to prove that they're alike. You can't just say, well, some of them are alike, or that this is what it is. Like when that documentary is comparing like humans to birds and sharks and stuff, it's like, okay, but like they made the argument that humans are genetically similar to primates, so you can compare it to primates, and you can still make the argument, well, what other ways are we similar? You can behave in totally different ways. So in what ways is this analogous? But at least they said, well, genetically we're similar. But in what ways are we similar to birds and sharks? Like, what's the argument there? What makes us so similar? You have to say why you make this analogy. And so that's it's useful to break that down. It's useful to have this scheme to look at other schemes. And the schemes help you with like causal reasoning and all that stuff. So, um, I found it pretty useful actually. The only problem is that like it's starting to make me even more notice how badly people argue online, and it just kind of bugs me. Like it's like it's allowed me to like it's kind of like allowing you to put a name to a face. Like you always knew this person, but now you know what to call them, and it's like now I'm even more aware of stuff, and it's just sort of like the one that bugs me the most is when people just change the subject. Like that's the red herring, right? Where and but it's like when someone makes an argument and you provide a counter argument to it, and then they completely change what you were arguing, and it's like one I saw yesterday, and I'm not taking sides, but their whole like Selena Gomez says there are more important things to worry about. You know, we should be worrying about those things, and not Taylor Swift. Obviously, that's her friend. And people are like, well, you know, why don't you use your voice to talk about all these things? Like, how come you don't do anything? And which, by the way, like the appeal to hypocrisy isn't like it doesn't actually invalidate the fact that she's right every probably, or at least she might be right if you want to look at it that way. Those are your values, right? That maybe we should be looking at things, even if she's a hypocrite. But my point is that like people, some of her, like that's what went viral, and then her fans were like, well, she does do all these things, and they listed all the things that she's done and things that she's spoken out of. And then they were like, well, all celebrities do those things, right? So that's a red herring. That bugs me when people, like, regardless of whether I agree with you or not. And I agree that she probably could do more for her. But the whole, like, when people find out the stuff that she's done, the answer is, well, everyone does it. Well, what does that really do anything? Your issue was that she didn't do anything, or so you thought. So now you have new information. You know, you have to reevaluate that rather than just go, so all celebrities do this thing, so what, so they don't matter? And in the same way, like, I was doing some stat-based thing to make an argument on imagery about police violence, and so I had the stats with me. When there was some comment on the Washington Post, and there was the usual, like, well, white people get killed more white people get killed than black people by police. Ow. Okay. And then so I was pointing out that black people are 1/7 of the population. In America, they're tend to get killed at like half the rate as white people. Therefore, they're being disproportionately killed. And not half the rate, like half as much total, but they're disproportionate. So I was pointing out like that's the issue, right? So that's a good argument. The counter argument is the reason this is an issue is not because of total numbers, but about representations by population. Now, and then the person said, well, they should stop resisting police and they should stop committing crimes then. Right? So that's a red herring. It has nothing to do with anything. I correctly counter argumented you. You know, and the response is that it doesn't matter. Right? And that's I hate that. It's a bad argument scheme regardless of how I agree with you, because it's just bad logic. And of course I don't agree with it. That would be the other thing. But it has nothing to do with anything. No, I hate this one. to think you were supposed to jump over this and slide under that, but actually it doesn't matter. No.
Careful, Nate.
No, I won't be careful. Ow! I got shot in the head. Look where that blood spatter is. That was right above my eyes. I must have been shot right in the head. And now I'm being headbutted in the head where I was just shot. Ow! Fucking kablam! It was red. You barely were doubling down on that. You made the thing where someone provides a counter argument and then they just change the subject. They change what they were arguing. Well, that doesn't matter. Like, that's the woodpecker model, right? Where you just woodpeck. All you want to do is bring the argument, and you have an overall point you want to make, and nothing's going to knock you off that.
Started making threats to the high people. Found out about Icarus. They had to kill him. Sorry, even though she was just
We're talking logic. Tropes haven't got a place. Yeah, it's another thing, which is that, like, there's nothing wrong with tropes if you do them well. I was actually thinking about how argumentation, like discourse, applies to story writing. Like writing strong themes or writing like a strong story is kind of like making strong arguments. And that simply because you subscribe to a trope doesn't make it bad unless you use it bad. Right? Unless you use it badly. And if you use it poorly, then, like, if you use an argument scheme poorly, it becomes a fallacy. But you can use it well, too. So if you use, like a trope well, like lots of stories are trope. Lots of stories we like are trope. I love Star Wars, it's full of tropes. And that's sort of, but people, because of TV tropes, it's gotten to the idea that tropes are bad. Oh shit. And it's like, tropes are not necessarily bad. It's a bicycle. No, this bicycle is just I mean, I suppose if people do take their bicycles up in the elevators and put them places where they work, but it's just kind of weird there's so many bicycles sitting on rooftops. Who's that person? Someone just left? Who's this person who left? A balloon! A balloon! Oh, I missed that. I knew I missed the pipe the second I dropped. I was rushing it because I was scared. Because I figured that one of the reasons I was failing this part so often is because I wasn't dying, and therefore my speed of reaching those cops was determining whether or not the evil runners caught up to me. And I knew I didn't want to roll off the edge there. I had to break fall, but sometimes I just don't break fall and just eat the damage. Like, ultimately, it doesn't matter, so it's probably better if I do that. But yeah, so I was worried about about those evil riders catching up to me and tasering me as I was climbing the pipe. So I was trying to do that part very quickly, and I didn't position myself well for that kind of jump, which I knew because I knew I was rushing. Anyways. Complete. So that's me talking about the course. It's almost over, but I have this giant paper tonight. It's not actually a big paper. It's like 1,300 words. It's nothing to me. Oh. Well, that's good. Yeah, I jumped too close to that one, to the thing. So she didn't grab it. Like, I jumped there, and so she didn't register that platform. It's sort of annoying, because you don't want to be too close here, she'll wall run off it. I think as long as I'm like very engaged and talking about something that's not this game, it helps, because I think I was doing okay. It was good to talk about school and various argument schemes. The schemes of the arguments. These schemes. Lovely. The sleeper position. Bam! But it's sort of disappointing that my classmates are either hyper into arguing because they're, especially like the dudes there, who are like the ones who use gigantic words and deliberately try to obfuscate their points, and they're like, well, like according to existentialism or whatever. And it's like, but that's not relevant to it. I know you're trying to sound smart.
In the rifle, we can get that convoy tonight. Find a way to hold it down.
Ooh.
I go up to the engine. I'm going to pack you with the CBS and have the convoy here. Connor, convoy, what's your status? Over?
I like how Fade can hold it completely steady. They don't do that like slight bobbing thing. Like it does. No, what's going on? It's fluid. I always fuck thing. I love how you can run right between the two guards as long as you get to as long as you get to the revolving doors. It doesn't matter at all how many people are shooting at you. Like, who cares? Well, some tropes are inherently terrible played straight. It's like a fallacy, right? Some fallacies are bad no matter what. Red herrings are bad no matter what. There's no good red herrings. Equivocation is bad. That's where you use a word two different ways. And like various things are fallacies no matter what. They're always bad. And they're always fallacious arguments. So there are some tropes that are kind of like that too, but like not necessarily. Like other tropes are not necessarily bad if you make them strong, right? Like it's essentially like just like fleshing out your slippery slope arguments, or fleshing out could make it strong if the details are good. And like fleshing out your tropey character makes it strong. It can still fit a trope, and that's sort of the thing, right? Some things are always fallacious. And I think like I applied to stories, it kind of works.
No sorries. Just don't let them win.
Well, I worry like the Escher Girls thing. I sometimes worry that like people get the impression that they shouldn't do anything. That's not what it is. Like the problem with the internet is that anytime you have any sort of focused criticism, because it's so niche specific now, right? Like it becomes, oh, I shouldn't do this ever. I can't do. There's no way to do this. You're against every instance of this. So it's like I'm not against every instance of that. And nor are stuff I put on my site necessarily always wrong. Or like I don't make a judgment call in terms of like it's sinful or it's bad. It's a sin. It's just this is a thing that shows up a lot. Keep it in mind. What you do if it's up to you. There's too much stuff about like how things compare. The internet especially big on that, right? Where it's like, are things good or bad? Do you like things or not like things? Are they better than this or whatever? And like our culture, I'm not going to say human nature. I'm not going to say human nature, but like we're taught to sort of want to do these things in our culture. And like some people attribute that to capitalism in terms of like making everything competitive. But like I was thinking because I was listening to some kids talking about Pokemon or something, and outside my window, because a lot of kids talk outside my window. And then, and it was like, oh, but do you like it more than this one? Is it better? And it's like, and it was kind of insistent, but yeah, but how, like, where does it rank? How do you like, is it better? Well, do things necessarily have to be better? Do things that's like, and so the internet is also like, are these things good or bad, right? And sometimes they're not necessarily bad. Like, after Girls, everyone just takes everything from the site as bad. And it's like, I didn't say that. Where did I say bad? Where people are like, well, this thing, is it a good or bad thing? I have to know. Everything has to be good or bad. Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought that they kind of need to reload. Because they missed me with everything. They had to reload, and during that period of time, I was able to hit the button. I wonder if anyone else is kind of showing it. We are talking argumentation. If it wasn't for being marked, I would enjoy my course a lot more. And maybe if we had more advertising to analyze, because advertising is a big source of arguments, right? And that's sort of what I think the course is good for, and what they sometimes talk on, which is like being able to parse advertising and the sort of arguments they're trying to convince you of and how they're trying to convince you. That's what I thought the course was primarily about. But the beginning part was a lot about arguing, which I was worried that was going to be the entire course. But it turns out we are focusing on parsing arguments, which is what I thought.
No time to think. Take this content and head for the roof. It's where they take it.
There's that unsanitized ear piece that you hate so much, Kim. Go now, run, run, run! No! Maybe go back to it. Kablam! I really like the bullet holes there because, especially when you first, like, it's the engagement in this game. There's sort of that sucks you in and makes you feel like you're really running for your life. So when you run to an elevator and the shuts and all these bullet holes come through, especially for the first times you play, it's like, oh, I did it! And it makes you feel so good. Like, it really makes you feel like you're in the game. It makes me feel like that. It's like part of the reason I stopped playing this game, despite how much you die, is one, because they incorporate the rushing dying animation, you know, the whole shh when you head towards the floor and it goes flat. That kind of takes the place of a loading sequence, so there's not like every time you die you have to get into a loading screen, which would be so frustrating. So there's like deaths feel quick. You're like, ah, and you die, and then you reload, and so it's not too bad to just keep playing this game. And the other one. And so that kind of stuff really sucked me in the first time I played this game, and I was willing to put up with that. And because I really enjoy going through it. Like I started to go through it again and again and again. Because it's fairly like not too stressful. Like it's not like every room is rooms full of enemies. That would be very and the room full of enemies are very annoying. But even parts that are very difficult, especially for beginners. Wait, somehow you jump over that thing. Wait, I'm dying here all the time, constantly. So, yeah, so the elevator part is cool. Ah. But yeah, I would like to have more, like, analyzing documentaries, analyzing videos. Those are fun. Like, analyzing commercials. The one thing I don't like about the course is that the lectures, like, at first we were getting, like, written lectures and we were getting, which is fun. And video audio lectures where the teacher was actually speaking, and then, as I said, the course was incredibly fun. And then we started to just get like a bunch of little videos the teacher made with this animation program. Oh wow, I lived! I got shot twice in the air. And I even started the death fall animation, but somehow I did not die. Like you saw her hands in it. So, Zinxie found what kind of programs, but those just have, she just attaches like Sims kind of music to it, and then just has a whole bunch of little pre-made characters saying stuff. Like not actually saying stuff, just like with little cartoon word bubbles and tons of text. And the problem is it's really bizarre. It's hard to read because it's so low resolution. If you blow it up, it's just fuzzy. And it's tiny text, like they're basically lecture slides, except it's on YouTube at low resolution. And you can't read them if you have a screen reader. So if you have like visual problems in this class, visual disabilities, sucks to be you. Just all the people in the other room literally could be rushing into this room after Faith gets in the elevator, and we could like, how does he get out of that room? Because he's facing away from the guard room, right? And he's pointing at the door, so presumably he expects guards to be coming in that way where his guns are pointed. But then there's a room filled with guards right behind him that I just left. And so how does he get out of that room? Where does he go? Is he just sitting in that room? Is that why he just gets silenced here? Because they finally came in after him and he realized he was making no way out. Where's the third one? Oh, I saw him. I thought I saw a piece of him. Here it is. Must be hiding behind something. These guys get so confusing. I'm trying not to get this It's weird. I dropped the gun and I think I'm picking up the other gun. But it's like I didn't throw the gun as far away as I thought. So, roof access. And he's on Skipple Taxi. So yeah, I don't know how Miller got out of that room. Anyways, so my point of everything is that it's an interesting class. Like, I thought I might be interested in it. It is interesting. I get stressed about all the fighting. The discussion forums are not. The discussion forums are a problem in the way I have not. Like, I was worried that I was just going to get stressed because they were going to make us argue about all sorts of controversial topics, and I would be in a class with like annoying arguing guys. And instead, my problem is that people are not posting. And we are like moving away from it. We are doing some arguing, and we can look at different arguments. Like we can pick examples of fallacious arguments. But most of the time, people are not analyzing the arguments, but the context, or at least their point of view, which is sort of annoying. Because like when they posted the Black Lives Matters, the Toronto Black Lives Matters, stopping Pride thing, people got caught up on whether they agreed on it. They agreed with Black Lives Matters and not on any arguments made. And this is the same thing that's happening with the documentary, that people are agreeing with the documentary. Not like they're agreeing with the point of view of the documentary or disagreeing with the point of view of the documentary, but not with the arguments themselves. How'd I do? Seven's pretty good. I think I did 7 last time. I think I have no death run going into. I have no death run going into like almost the 5th level, isn't it? Like, I think I no deathed it for most of it, and then I one deathed it for a bit. And then, like, if you take out those 2 goofy deaths in the pipes there, like in the vent area, when I missed, she jumped over the pipe and then she fell through the cracks. I think she died 3 times there, didn't I? Did I have 2 or 3 deaths at that point? Like right near the end, before I went into the vent when she missed the pipe. When she jumped over the bar the first time, and then the second time she grabbed the pipe and then jumped and fell through the cracks in the thing. Was that 2 or 3? I would have 4 or 5? Okay, so I'm like it's funny that I was like so out of it and talking the entire time. This is actually Anyways, thanks for watching. So, including all the cutscenes, I finished that in just 2:10. That's not bad. I had some issues. I died 7 times. Like, I think my fastest time was when I died 3 times. And I finished in 2 hours. 3? So if it's 3, I had 4 going into that point. That's not bad. That's actually really good. That on stream, anyways. Like I've done a no death run. Not totally. I've done 1 and 2 saves. I've done a no death run. Well, not technically. Like I've had 2 different parts, but the point is I've done really good on my own, listening to podcasts and playing. When I'm streaming, it's always going to be a different experience. I'm always going to feel sort of pressured to not do well. 7, it's not bad, given that I was tired. And then there were some parts that kind of inflated that. Like I died a bunch of times. And I died one was really sloppy. That was the pipe one when I was rushing it because I was worried about getting to that situation I did before. Because what was happening in the past is that I tend to die there. And then because I die, I spawn. It's one of the few parts where if you die, you get there faster. Like if you jump on the pipe, it takes longer than if you just die. Because they spawn you at the bottom right by the next jump. So they actually spawn you ahead. So, and it also restarts where the evil runners spawn. So what was happening is that because I was actually doing that part without dying, because I'm trying not to die, I was taking a little too long to do all the other parts. So by the time I got there, the evil runners were closer than if I had died and they had reset maybe to a certain location. So they were actually getting me to the top of that pipe with the taser. So I was worried about that. So I was trying to rush the pipe thing, and so I jumped wide because I hadn't made a proper 90-degree U-turn. And I should have paid a little more attention to that, which I knew the second I did that I was probably going to miss the pipe. So that was sloppiness. And the other one was I rolled off the edge of that platform after I did the mod jump, which I couldn't. What's that noise? Oh, no problem, Kim. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you watching. If you do a stream, let me know. I like it when you do like the Hitman streams because I really like Hitman, and I like watching people play it because I like to see people like I like to see the game. It's a game that like I want to like a lot more because of its concept. But I don't really like playing it. And thanks for watching, everyone. Probably that's it for me for tonight. I mean, like, if I want to talk more, maybe I'll take a walk. Like maybe if people are still up in a few hours, and I'm still up in a few hours, and Trish isn't home yet, then maybe I'll stream some Contraption Maker or something, or Portal, or something to talk on. This was actually a pretty good talk, but it was mostly me talking at people were not talking to me. And I think that was part of it, like if I'm talking and I'm sort of just like, talking about stuff, it means I'm not looking at the screen and that is a distraction. I think I ended up with 7 deaths last time too though, so this isn't actually better. I just had a much better start. Oh, Hitman. I was just saying Hitman is what I like watching you play. Like, I like watching you play in general. I'm just saying that. I like the way Hitman stream. And if you stream anything, like, not be Hitman, but if you stream things, let me know. I'll hang out in your stream, and I'll keep you company like you keep me company. I'll try to do the streams a little earlier. Like today was just I wasn't really planning to, but then I was just bored. But the Sherlock Holmes stream with me and Trish is not bad. The problem is there's a delay because Trish has to watch on the stream because I worry about the amount of bandwidth I'd be using if I screen shared Skype with her and also stream the thing. Like, I know when she screen shared Skype with me, even though it was just Police Quest, and she was also streaming it to everyone else, that the problem was that, like, occasionally the stream would, like, be slow. I don't want that to happen. But so that ends up being sort of awkward because for puzzles I have to wait until she catches up to the video. But that was fun too because we got to solve puzzles together. So did you hear it, Cameron? Do I have to repeat myself? Let's see. so they weren't bad about it. Diverse. I need diverse games within a diverse streamers directory. What's that? What's that? Oh, well, you don't have no rush for training and all that stuff. I'm not saying you must stream. I'm just saying if you do, just like. What's a diverse streamers directory? You must know these things. Okay. I might add myself to there. I'm still deciding what I'm doing for streaming, what I'm doing with my online profile in general. If I want to be more high profile or less high profile. I'll give that a shot. Thanks for letting me know. I'll save this. Do I have to let them know, or can you let them know, or something? Is this a thing where I have to tell them something, or that somebody can just say, hey, I know this stream over here. Pay attention to them. I mean, I don't really want random people sometimes. Randoms can be random. But if I get good randoms, like I do want to get people to keep me company and stuff. Anyways, thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you later. Keep an eye on my Twitter. Follow, subscribe, blah blah blah. I should probably put my Twitter here. Anyways. So, oh, there should be a form? Okay, there's a form. Why is there a form? This seems a little disturbing. Okay, that's good. Directing good people towards me is good. I can always use more people. Right? Figure out what else I want to do. Like it seems kind of boring that I just play Mirror's Edge over and over and over again. Like it doesn't bother me. But that I've got to do more than that. I thought about streaming like the podcast at the same time with the Mirror's Edge, because you can hear all those awful JSON callers. But it might be hard to discuss. Like you would be able to hear me on top of like little mirror the callers talking at the same time. You know? Okay. Thank you. I'll keep that in there. Maybe a thing I can Park. So, thanks for watching, everyone. I'll talk to you all later. Keep an eye on my Twitter. I've added it to my info. I've added all sorts of things to my info. Read my info. And I'll let you know if I stream again tonight, which I probably won't. Life is unknown. I don't know what. It's bringing this back down to 0. Take care. Take care, everyone. Meow, meow, meow.